Hey, what's going on, guys? Thank you so much for tuning back in. This week, I got a chance to talk with Professor Odi, and he is a life coach and a therapist, and he specializes in the Black community. So it was an awesome conversation that I got to have with him, but we got so carried away that we definitely went over time. So this is going to be part one of a two-part episode with Professor Odi. So I hope you guys enjoy it.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on the show. But so for all the folks that may not know you, what's your name? What do you do? How can we find you?
So my name in total is Odi Lakachi William Hezekiah Onkwe. What do I do? I am a therapist and a life coach. Where can you find me? You can find me on my website at blackwealth.com. That's www.blkwlth.com. You can also find me on Instagram at professor.odi. And you can also find me on YouTube at professor_Odi. We taking over, man. This is
cool. Awesome. And obviously here on TikTok, same handle and everything as well. Awesome. So the topic tonight, man, when I hit you up a couple weeks ago, I was excited to throw this at you because you were doing a lot of content on it right at that time was, and we saw, a couple anecdotes of things that were pretty strange, with, the one therapist, her name escapes me right now. I probably shouldn't even say her name though, anyway, because she had made a video that was really passionate and said, Black men should go to therapy, to therapy, work out your emotions, work out your issues, work out your problems.
Yes.
I was just on with Sunny Day a couple weeks ago, and we reiterated the same thing.
Right.
Be emotionally intelligent, understanding your emotions is an important thing, and working through those is an important thing. So that's what you do. So what would you say to a man that is like, I don't know about therapy? Especially in the Black community, we have a lot of stigma around therapy. We have a lot of stigma around mental health. So I'm coming to you for the first time, and I'm like, hey, Doc, I'm not sure about doing all this. I grew up different. What would your response to that be? What would you say to somebody?
What have you heard?
What have I heard about therapy?
What have you heard?
That it's, that real men don't need to go to therapy. It's for suckers. It's not anything that I need, in my life. It shouldn't be something important.
So then why are you here?
Because, I tried everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, to maybe feel different, better. Feel better, different. I don't know.
What does that look like for you?
Maybe not being upset all the time.
What?
I don't know. I just feel anger. I just feel like I can't wrap my head around it. But it just feels like.
I'm gonna tell you something, and this is usually how this will go. I'm going to tell you something real quick, brother. I'm just going to stop you at the pass because, one, I don't want you to feel as though this is an uncomfortable space. Like, you don't have to, there's no reason to feel as though you have to, like, feel something or feel a particular type of way just because you're here. That's one. Two, a number of us as men have difficulty accessing our emotions based upon something called normalized male alexithymia. Basically, what that means is that from a very young age, we as men have been taught to feel nothing but anger. So basically, what it is that you're feeling right now is relatively normal for a lot of men who have come into my space. That's the second thing. The third thing is that, brother, I'm almost certain that if you dig deep enough, that anger is going to hit sadness at some point in time. And that is the reason why you're here. You are trying to remove yourself from that anger all the time so that you can feel the emotions that your family is probably begging you and asking you to feel, and you are frustrated that you cannot feel them. But the only thing that you can feel is anger because you cannot feel them.
So how do you feel about therapy in the sense that is it something that we should be suggesting to people, or is it something that we should be waiting for them to want to do? I've always heard kind of a back and forth of it's not going to work if you don't want it, or you should offer help to someone. Like if you know, there's a lot of women in the comments right now. If there's someone in their life that they're like, I think that this might help them. What do we do?
So the first thing is you have to address how it is that you are addressing this suggestion of therapy with men. A number of men that come to me come under the guise that they're being forced to come. That's one. But also, two, you cannot weaponize a therapeutic outcome. You cannot. If you are saying you need to go to therapy on the end of you being upset, you are weaponizing that as an outcome, and that's never going to work in your favor. That's one. Two, you can offer somebody the option to therapy, but they have to walk into the room by themselves. And I would tell you, because I used to work with court-ordered individuals in my therapy room, and sometimes they would be wildly negligent or wildly neglectful of their own treatment plan. And I would tell them straight up, I'm like, listen, whether or not you talk, I'm still going to get paid, and I still got to report to the judge. So you make the decision. And and I would sit there and I would wait until somebody started talking. Because the reality of the situation is therapy at its base is energetic first. You have to believe. So have you ever noticed that whenever we talk about the placebo effect, we never talk about what the placebo effect is?
What do you mean?
Placebo effect. So the placebo effect is essentially the effect of suggestion, right? So if I give you a pill, that's a sugar pill, and I say this sugar pill is supposed to assist you with headaches, nausea, and indigestion, and I give you this pill, but I don't tell you it's a sugar pill, and you experience all of those things, that means that you were more psychologically primed to experience those things, and then your body caught up. That pill did absolutely nothing but simulate you taking medication. That's one. So the placebo effect, the reason why we don't do too much science on the placebo effect is because our science is based in empiricism. It is based upon the separation between the material and the immaterial, right? So that is the reason why we value the hard sciences over the soft sciences, because the hard sciences allow us to continue to capitalize. The soft sciences do not, right? Or so we believe. But now we are coming into a renaissance where we understand the soft sciences, i.e. the anthropologies, the psychologies, the sociologies, all explain the things that are going wrong in the capitalistic endeavor. So then what does that do? That then creates the conversation around, well, then how are we really talking about mental health? And in order for us to have that conversation freely, we have to talk about how it is that we as men tend to dismiss emotion and thus make it harder for ourselves to believe that we even need something to happen to us, right? So the placebo in that entire dynamic is the man believing that therapy works. If he does not believe that it works, it will not work. Which is the reason why, as a man, I asked you the question, why are you here? You told me, and we were role playing, you told me that this is your last resort. How common is
that? I mean, on a personal anecdote, that is why I started seeing a therapist, was because I was like, I mean, yes, we were role playing, but the story wasn't too far off from my own, and I don't know if it's too far off from a lot of people's. I was at a point in my life where I'm like, I've done everything else. I need help with this, and getting, kind of touching on what you said about the hard sciences versus the soft sciences. I graduated college with a degree in sociology, and I still, in my head, was conditioned that psychology and therapy were things that you just kind of try on, that there wasn't any sort of anything formulaic to it. There wasn't structure to it. There wasn't.
But do you want to know why?
Why?
So when we think about it, I can, if this were indigenous cultures, or if indigenous cultures were more widespread, I would be considered a shaman. The reason being is because what it is that therapists do actually is that we assist you in manipulating the negative energy that exists and continues to exist within your body based upon the internal narratives that you tell yourself. Right? That's one. Two, the reason why a lot of men choose to come to therapy as a last resort is because they have to go through all of the hard things first. They have to go through all of the masculine things first. They have to go through all of the things they can touch, see, taste, sense, and feel first. Right. They have to go through all of their 5 earthly senses first, their 5 masculine senses first. That's one. Two, the reason why that separation still exists to this day is because of how it is that anthropologically and sociologically the separation between church and state, or the separation between occult and non-occult, happened. Because during the period of time in Europe, what happened is that the people who practice occultism, so in the Bible there are a lot of references to philanderers, thieves, and tricksters and magicians. These are people who, during the period of time where it was the Crusades, where the people who were in the occult were being persecuted for more so indigenous belief systems and how it is that they operated, because the church needed a basis on which to basically build slavery and capitalism, they began demonizing anything that looked like an indigenous practice, including the indigenous practices in their own land. So what it is that did is that it reinforced the idea that God was the only way to do these divinations, which I thought was hilarious, because you say in the Bible that you should not divine, yet everything about this is divination.
Right.
You dig what I'm saying? So have you ever read The Alchemist?
Yes, not in a long time. Refresh me.
That's okay. Because in my book club, we're reviewing The Alchemist right at this moment in time. And if you're not in my book club, go check it out. If it's in my link tree on my Instagram. But we're reviewing The Alchemist right now, and I'm basically moving ahead a little bit of what it is that we're discussing in the book club. But in The Alchemist, it said that Ummem and Thummim were the only stones that were able to be cast in geomancy through divination in the Hebrew Bible, right? So let's stop right there. How is it that then you, as an individual who is religious, do not believe in some aspect of divination when your own text identifies particular divination that you can do in order to become closer to God? I don't understand. So there is an exception for every rule. Literally, there is an exception for every rule. So if we are looking at it from that perspective, what we are identifying now is this differentiation between what it is that we believe to be real and what it is that we believe not to be real. But the reality of that situation is all of that is plausible, based upon what it is that the Nobel Peace Prize winners in quantum physics just figured out, that the local universe is not real. The local universe does not exist. Do you understand what I'm saying? So now we're really getting into the quantum mechanics of why therapy is something that is immaterial, but it has a science behind it. Because there is a particular way in which me, as a scientist, a behavioral scientist, I literally have to rearrange the way that you think, which is immaterial, based upon prompts that we go back and forth with. But the way that your brain works, you have to be open to those prompts in order for those prompts to work. Because if you do not, your brain will continue to create defense mechanisms against what you perceive to be an attack.
You're gonna have to give me I'm sorry. After you speak, you're gonna have to give me like at least maybe 10 seconds to process.
I'm learning.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and I think that answers a lot of why it's not real, or we have this sense about it that it is some sort of spiritual connection. It is some sort of non-tangible thing, even if you don't want to go that direction with it, with labels or calling it anything. But we understand that it's not tangible, but so is our consciousness. The way that we think, what it is that's happening, everything that fires in us. I was just explaining libidinal thought to someone the other day, and they were just their minds were blown as I'm explaining, like, I mean, everything, it doesn't matter, everything that fires in this section of the brain. That's why we say it's not just your sex drive, it's all kinds of things that give you pleasure, or you receive some kind of stimuli from that you enjoy, or you're looking forward to, or you're seeking, or you're chasing, or you're after that.
So we're gonna knock it down. We're gonna knock it down in a way that I feel like everybody's gonna be able to vibe with, because most of our audiences are black. So two things. One, I'm gonna say this to you, and I feel like you're gonna resonate with what it is that I'm about to say to you.
Hit me.
In your own therapy journey, you realize that you only went to therapy with an open mind after you had a come to Jesus moment?
Right.
Right? So you recognize that whatever was in the material space could not help you, so you had to transcend the material space. And in order for you to transcend the material space, you had to, in a way, come within yourself.
Correct.
Right? So what that means is that two things for me. One, in order for you to get closer to God, you have to become closer to yourself. And when they say cleanliness is next to godliness, they don't necessarily mean just physical cleanliness. They mean spiritual and energetic cleanliness. Now, let's break it down even further, right? So, what I am saying is that what you are talking about is sympathetic vibrations. Erykah Badu said in science, vibrations that vibrate at the same frequency tend to move towards each other. It's called a sympathetic vibration. When you exist in a sympathetic vibration, right? So have you ever been to a live orchestra?
Yeah.
Or have you ever been to church and they, you know what I'm saying, they get to playing the, right? That's a sympathetic that's a sympathetic vibration. But none of that is sexual. All of that exists in the parts of your brain that process feelings of emotion that are based upon sound resonance. That is literally there is a psychological connection between sound, literally the way in which sound vibrates and how it is that your brain responds to it. That is the reason why people believe in sonics. That's the reason why people believe in sonic therapy, because your body is quite literally an electromagnetic communicator. It is a receiver and a transmitter. Because how does our brain work? It works on electromagnetic signals. So what I tell my clients is that your body, first and foremost, your being, first and foremost, your spiritual being, is an electromagnetic communicator that is always being engaged with based upon the environment around you, right? That's one. What does that have to do with us as human beings understanding how it is to manage that energy? You have to understand that, one, each of those energies exist within you, but also, two, if those energies exist within you, so when we talk about baggage, when we talk about trauma, when we talk about deposits, trauma physically reconstructs the way that it is that your brain is wired. If you do not accept that physical reconstruction, if you do not radically accept that physical reality, you will never understand how to move forward in that reality, because you are not accepting that it exists. You do not believe that it is real. A number of men do not believe acute realities, let alone realities that we cannot see, because we are so attached to this idea of performing masculinity, which traditionally is attached to things in the material, that we completely deny the aspect of the feminine or the spiritual or the immaterial. So what does that mean? We will continue to resonate with things that do not vibrate past a particular level because we are not willing to let them go. We are not willing to let go of these deposits. And that happens with everybody. Because these deposits, these traumas, whether they be little t's or big t's, are energy clusters that exist within your electromagnetic space that are reflected by your brain, which is designed to keep you alive, which then sends signals to the rest of your body to behave in a particular way. That is the reason why we talk about the limbic system so much. That is the reason why we talk about the lower, the mid, and the upper brain so much, because what you feel before you think.
Right.
Right? So if you recognize that you feel before you think, that entire energetic process, you have to understand how that works. You have to admit that those things have happened to you. You have to accept that so that you can resonate with that and move past it.
Right. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. You know what's funny? I've never heard a word, and it's great that it's a musician that you brought up that has said this, but I never put a word.
No. It wasn't a musician. It was one of my professors in undergrad who had a doctorate in psychology, who studied the relationship between music and psychology.
Oh, even better.
He just so happened to be a musician.
Oh, that's amazing. Because I have always, in my other ventures in life, I am a musician. I was, freelance professional for many years, and I still do scoring and writing and producing music. And part of what the scoring process is, we always talk about it like, what do we want to make the audience feel? The music is always so important to making the audience feel something. You can change things about it. When I would play, I would play percussion in different bands. We would change the feel by changing the rhythm of the drums. The
by
groove.
Literally changing the impact.
Right, exactly. So we would be playing in one style and then change the way that the rhythm fits together, and then that gives the audience a different interpretation. The chords haven't changed, the sonic sound hasn't changed, like the melody hasn't changed, but we changed the rhythm and the groove, and that changes the feel of the song.
So I'm gonna stop you right there. And I'm going now vibe with me, right?
I'm here with it.
We as black men say that we are the leaders of the community, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they say you have to learn how to march to the beat of your own drum. We are too busy trying to figure out the cacophony of every other man's drum instead of tuning into the rhythm of our own beat. That's one. Mm-hmm. Two, if we recognize that as men, we have the ability to also tap into that rhythm and set the tempo, that requires us listening to literally our own hearts. Because that is the first place where you recognize the beats per minute that exist within your reality. Right? So then the question then becomes, as the man, what do you want your audience to feel? Because your first audience is either your family, whether it be the family that you come from or the family that you have created, the friends that you are attempting to impact, or the women you are attempting to attract. Brother, what do you want your audience to feel about you?
And I think this is a good place to segue into the topic I touched on a couple weeks ago, but I was waiting to dive deep for you. The influx of, we'll say, red pill kind of alpha male content, it feels as though
boy, you going in the danger zone. We finna get bad. That's why I got bad this morning, dog. But okay, I'm gonna try my best. All right, my boy. Hey, I am being accountable and responsible for both my platform and yours. You feel me? But let's do it. Let's do it.
Look, I've been waiting for this. They can't
take
this. They can't.
Because here's the thing is, right now, I'm gonna tell everybody right now. If my live get banned, the after party is at my backup account. I swear to God, we gonna be right back to it. They not stopping me, boy. Yes, they thought we was playing. We coming right back with it. Let's go. Let's get into it.
Yeah. Drop it in the comments. It's Master.Odi. We will definitely just jump on and go get.
We just gonna reboot. We gonna bring it back. But let's go. You ready? Because there's always haters in the comments. Let's go.
Exactly. So we have this influx of alpha male content, this idea, and we talked. I just had a conversation about the alt-right pipeline and those connections between red pill content and things that feel innocuous, like fitness talk and sports cars, but traditionally masculine things that feel as though they aren't necessarily bad on their face, and maybe what the presenter is saying isn't necessarily harmful, but it's the little moments in between. It's the little things, like you see the car and it's like, hey, look at this car, it's such an awesome car, like you won't believe
masculinity marketing.
Exactly. I was able to afford this because, I got this awesome job, and, a real man doesn't settle, for like the lower things. You got to be, you have to be an alpha male. You have to be a high quality man. You have to be something that people desire and want, and you can't take no for an answer.
It's so funny.
If you're looking for somebody, or you want that girl, you can't take no for an answer. If you ask her for the number and she doesn't give it to you, you got to continue on. You have to do better, brother.
I alpha. I alpha.
And did you hear it? Like, we started off talking about cars, and we segue into the mentality that you need to attain that status that is something that is revered and what we're looking for. And then in order to do that, you have to get the girl and you have to get the job, and you can't take no for an answer with anything, with any of those things, especially if it's the girl. But do you hear it? Did you hear that? Because that's the part that is the scary part. That's the part that starts to lead into down these pathways of, well, if a woman says no to you, you got to just keep trying, or don't accept a no. And now we're having that conversation, and we got there from look at this sports car. So I know on your podcast you've been battling them, the other podcast bros, and it's tough out here as black men trying to do something and competing in a sea of other black men that are, like you said, trying to. And oh boy, we could get into that. The white supremacist cacophony of sound that we are trying to emulate instead of walking to the beat of our own drum. But I will save that thought for later. But what is your suggestion with how we can handle this? What's advice to the young man that's just getting into this content? He hasn't fallen down the hole yet, but he doesn't know what he's looking at.
Couple of things. One, you do not have to demean women in order to become wealthy. And I will be able to show you all that, I would say, within the next 2 to 4 months. You do not have to demean women in order to become wealthy. That's one thing. I think a lot of men operate underneath that perception. You don't have to do that. You also don't have to pander in order to become successful with women. You don't have to do that either. Women do not like men who pander. They actually feel like that means that you don't have a backbone. Like women who engage with men like that are usually using that man to fulfill a particular need, which is one, the reason why a lot of alpha men or red pill podcasters come about. Because, so here's the thing. What I would say to somebody like that is you have to understand, one, that what it is that you see in these alpha male red podcast communities, usually they're lying to you. I really wish I was being like, no, they're usually lying to you. If you truly investigate any of the people who you watch online, and like, don't ever attempt to like be somebody. Don't attempt to emulate them. Just attempt to understand what it is that they're coming, or where it is that they're coming from. Right? Because a lot of these, and this is the reason why I say attempt to understand where they're coming from. It's not as if though I don't do my research on alpha male red pill podcasters. The reality of the situation is a lot of them fall into the same category, which is the category of men who have been harmed by women and have not learned how to resolve that emotion of being harmed by women. And usually the women who have harmed them are either their mothers or a previous partner who, once again, because they were underneath the guise of believing that they were not able to resolve that emotion, they then led into this alt-right hyper-masculine space that women who flock to that space usually are flocking to that space out of some type of desperation, because they believe that those are the only type of men who can get them out of basically what is the wiles of the patriarchy, right? So they are looking for this man to protect them and perform patriarchy in their protection. But what tends to happen in that space is these women are also being abused. Their friends are also like these hyper-masculine spaces. They are spaces in which a number of men don't recognize that the name of the game is who can tolerate the most disrespect and abuse without responding. And then you pin up all that aggression and you save all that aggression, and then you release it towards whoever this cacophony of people who are hyping you up say is the enemy. Think about it. Fitness talk, gym bros, all of that. Oh, yeah, testosterone. You see those guys over there? They're not doing it. They're the enemy. Fuck those guys.
Why?
Why? because they are not performing the type of masculinity that they believe you should perform.
There it is.
There we go. Right. So once again, are you masculine enough to not perform masculinity, but to be a man?
Hold on. Say it one more time. Say that one more time.
Are you masculine enough to not perform masculinity, but to be a man?
Exactly. Because masculinity, what is masculinity? Like we use these words.
You want me to give you the common answer, or you want me to give you my answer?
Yes, I want you to get. We use toxic masculinity and things like that, and it gets mired and mucked in this kind of rhetoric of there's no such thing as toxic masculinity because it's all good. Masculinity is supposed to be a good thing. It's this, that, and the third. But if you ask that guy, well, what is masculinity? He's gonna freeze up because he doesn't really know what he's talking about. Mm-hmm. So I need the Prof Odi version, and I need the clinical version, and I need your version.
All right, so we're gonna break it down like this.
Let's do it.
Sociologically, masculine and feminine are the behaviors that we ascribe to the sexes that we have at birth. Mm-hmm. Right. So once we identify the quote unquote gender, it's not the gender, it's the sex. We identify the sex of the child, and then we prescribe a gender to it. That is literally what happens. That is the reason why people confuse sex and gender all the time. Right? So masculinity sociologically is the gender performance ascribed to a penis.
Right.
Not necessarily a man, but a penis. Right? I'm going to get to that point in a second. Ooh. Femininity, then conversely, is described or ascribed to vaginas or the sex of female, right? That's sociologically. The reason why I say that is because the alphabet homies, transgender homies specifically, when they have their cosmetic surgeries to become more into their vessel or be more comfortable in their vessel, there are times where the appendage for that person does not matter. There are other times where the appendage does matter. It depends on how much they want to resonate or be comfortable in that vessel, right? Now, that disresonation or that lack of resonation can also be ascribed to this feeling that this is how it is that I want to present as this gender in the society that I'm currently in. Based upon our gender politics, based upon how it is that we perceive gender. I want to resonate with this energy of the ascribed gender that is within this space, right? So within the space of, physical alignment with oneself, right? So the reason why I say ascribing to the appendage is because there are some women who feel more masculine when they have or are attached to a male appendage. Similarly, there are men who feel more feminine when they don female appendages, right? The resonation becomes clearer for them in their experience, right? And then that person will tell you, and I'm not saying that this is what happened. I'm recounting the experiences and the conversations that I've had with my homies to the best of my ability. I'm not saying that this is absolute in any way, shape, or form. This is just how it is that I've been informed based upon not only just my research, but, you know what I'm saying, whether or not the homies are saying yay or nay. You dig what I'm saying? So as we are talking about this resonance is very much so an interaction between how it is that you feel in your vessel spiritually and what it is that you have learned energetically in the society that you are in is this gender role expectation. Now, my answer of what masculine and feminine is are energies that exist within and through whatever vessel that you are based upon the concentration of estrogen or testosterone that you have within your person. The reason being is because those energy clusters, one, are scientifically viable. Each man and each woman has both estrogen and testosterone in them, which means that we are the reflection of this spiritual being that has both masculine and feminine in it, right? So, yeah.
Get in.
If we are made in his
it.
image, then call us by our names. Most intellects do not believe in God, but they fear us, not him, us, just the same. Hear what I'm saying to you, right? So, once again, masculine and feminine are energies that exist within the cosmological space that we all exist in. These are energies that represent particular ebbs and flows that then are transmitted based upon our behaviors and our understanding of these energies at that point in time. So, divine masculinity is usually ascribed to structure. It is usually ascribed to forward movement. It is usually ascribed to, the building of things. It is usually ascribed to discipline, self-regulation, self-evaluation, consistency, follow through, right? So we talk about all this at the top. We're not talking about all this at the bottom, right? Divine femininity represents nurturing, it represents care, it represents openness, but it also represents the ability to stipulate need. It also represents the ability to multiply. It also represents the ability to continue to understand that I am the mass, I am the water, I am what creates the all, right? Men have a part in that as well. Women have a part of this as well. And we as individuals who are vessels in this spiritual space, quite literally, this energetic space, because once again, what it is that I really study is the intersection between quantum physics and psychology. So it's like energy psychology, chakrology. That's what it is that I really study, right? I study the quantum mechanics of what it is that we think, feel, and do on a very much so energetic level, because I love the scientific idea of vibes. That's literally what I'm talking about. Right. So if we understand masculinity and femininity as literally energetic entities that exist within all of us, because you can measure them. We are both masculine. I was having a conversation with one of my clients, and she was like, we really broke down the etymology of transgender. And what we came to the idea that there is physical transgender and then there is a spiritual or a mental transgender, because the word transgender, the word trans literally means across. So if you break it down far enough, and if you have the understanding of intersectionality, transgender can literally mean I have ascended past the point of having to identify with a solid way of promoting gender. I no longer feel the need to identify with that, because it is too constraining for my spiritual being. Do you understand what I'm saying? And the reason why, hold on. The reason why that's powerful is because that person has identified that they are both a masculine and feminine entity on a gender binary that is too confining and only exists in the material.
Give me a second. Yeah, man. Like, so say it again for some folks that maybe it went real quick, because I was gonna ask you this question anyway, but it might have went real quick. So I don't know if anybody is noticing, but we have a therapist that is very much so speaking fluently between both the spiritual and scientific, the soft and hard sciences at the same time, and weaving them together. So go over a little bit, what is your specialty? Because I think that is one of the things that makes you so unique in your craft.
All right, so let's be very, very, very clear. My specialty is eclectic interventions, right? But what it is that I study as an individual is, as I said previously, I study the quantum mechanics of human behavior based upon the reality that we are energetic beings, right? So neurobiologically, how it is that we operate is from an energetic perspective, sincerely. So if you think of yourself, so let's go back to this whole idea of you being an energetic being, right? So let's go with the whole, matter of fact, and this is the reason why I love anime so much, because anime personalizes, or it personifies energy that exists within the world. They just make it clear. So think about it like this. Imagine if Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, all the anime that you watch, all of the colorful animations and stuff like that, imagine if you saw none of it. All of that was just an illustration of how energy moves, right? All of that was just an illustration of the things that we perceive in the material world to be miracles, but this is spirit working in its space, right? We can't see it. But when we move, when we call these spirits, when we put on this armor of God, we do not literally put on the armor of God. But when we incant armor of God in a particular way, you feel that protection.
Right.
Do you hear what I'm saying? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about this whole idea of the quantum mechanics of human behavior and the whole idea of shamanism, like I enjoy looking at how it is that indigenous practices show up in contemporary sciences, because they're still there. You just have to look for them, right? So altogether, my specialty is, you can call it a multitude of things, but I guess it's like energy psychology or like quantum psychology, where I very rarely do I. So my first thing that I tell my clients is that nothing exists in a vacuum and everything is plausible.
Ooh.
Nothing exists in a vacuum and everything is plausible.
Go on.
Right? So a lot of times when we think about psychology or when we think about sciences, and that is the flaw of empiricism. That is the ideological flaw in empiricism. It tries to make the observer completely removed from the experiment. And in quantum mechanics, there's no way to do that. There is no such thing as being unbiased. There's no such thing. Your brain cannot operate that way. You can process through the bias, but prejudice is something that happens as a function of your brain trying to keep you alive. So there's no way that you can be non-biased. You have to yield to the bias that you have in order to understand the limitations of your own perception.
Yeah. Right.
You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm glad that we're wrapping around to here, because this is a anti-racism podcast. This is what we do, what we try to teach and give people actionable things and ideas to think about. So we talked a little bit ago about the idea of and I'm going to use this imagery forever now of, I just see like a drum circle, but the sound of other drummers in other circles playing, and specifically the black man not having an idea. Like, all of these sounds are coming into us and we don't have a chance to really figure out what our beat is going to be, what we're supposed to be going to. And as an anti-racism educator, that ends up being most of the time the sound of white supremacy. That ends up being, because patriarchy is a function of that. A lot of white supremacist ideas end up being these kind of trickling down into these misogynist ideas, these patriarchal ideas, these capitalist ideas that all service that one big monster. There is a one big monster. And if we have this idea that our biases, because so a message to a lot of the white listeners, I think a lot of what you try to do is to break yourself of biases, is to make it so that you don't see those things anymore. And I've commented on this before, this idea of like a colorblindness, or
the more you try to be colorblind, the more you are literally leaning into the white supremacist ideology that you can be completely objective. You are literally attempting to behave as if though you are an image of God that is above reproach. You cannot do that. That's not even how your Bible works. Cut it out.
And I think this post-racial kind of idea that we've launched into since the 70s, but it really has picked up steam since Obama, to be honest. Since about 2005, we've reached this point where the best thing to do is, if racism exists, then if we don't talk about race, or we don't talk about blackness, and we don't talk about whiteness, then those two things can't ever bump heads. But looking at it from the perspective of mental health or therapy, and looking at it as a trauma response, and what you said something really important that I'm going to repeat on you, something that you said. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. Our biases are it's our brain's reaction to trying to keep us alive. And I think I think there's a lot of idea of, if we just don't speak on these things, or if we don't talk about them, or if we don't bring them up or something like that, then we can somehow get away from these. But I'm noticing a lot of Black folk are having this trauma response, this PTSD, this post-traumatic slave disorder kind of thing, where no, this is frightening. This is we can't articulate it, but the fear is real. The trauma response is there.
So I'm gonna say it to you like this, brother. A lot of Black people have a very hard time breaking the illusion of white supremacy, because they do not have the factual evidence to pinpoint when the rumor or the myth of white supremacy began, like, fluctuating actually through the United States at the time, and then they cannot attach it to an absolutely fallacious lie. I have the evidence right in front of me right here. It is on the APA's website. The American Psychological Association released a chronology that actually outlines how the United States, the American Psychological Association, continued to not only fund scientific racism, but support scientific racism. And most of the presidents of the American Psychological Association were known racists, known homophobes, known eugenicists. So the American Psychological Association has a lot to do with how it is that we have been educated about our own blackness, and they just released this apology in October of 2020. So I'm going to read to you the year, the people who did it, and what it is that they said, so that we can finally have on record where this originated and how much of a lie it is based on. Y'all ready?
Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
So, in 1892, the American Psychological Association is founded, with G. Stanley Hall as president and 31 white males elected to membership. 1895, one of the earliest examples of scientific racism, defined as the use of scientific concepts and data to create and justify ideas of an enduring biologically based hierarchy, is published in Psychological Review 1 year after the journal is first established. First Peoples, which are natives, and Black participants were reported to have faster reaction times than white participants. What does this mean factually? That means that Black people factually were able to identify, assess, process, and respond to stimuli, which literally means electromagnetically, we had a quicker reaction time than the white participants. This is what they said. The author argued that the reaction time was a primitive reflex, and that the superior, more evolved intelligence of white participants resulted in more contemplative thought and slower reaction times. Make it make sense. That's number one. Oh, no, there's more. But wait, there's more. 1897. In a study of Black and white children, Stetson, 1897, found that Black children, so this is now babies now, outperformed white children on a memory task. The author attributed this to greater mnemonic ability of their primitive brains. He further described Black children as being deficient in reasoning. It was not deficient in reasoning. They were deficient in acculturation to the white way of doing things, right? So, in 1897, the APA funds a committee on physical and mental tests, its first financial commitment to an activity other than its own administration. This has been going on for the past 100 and some odd years. And motherfuckers think that in the last barely 20, we are going to unlearn all of these things. Please stop playing with me. Now, more context. Now that we have broken away from this idea of white supremacy, Literally, we have done it scientifically, and we have done it anthropologically and chronologically. Let us now reinstall how it is that we as Black people actually develop this mnemonic ability. The way in which we identify reality is through numbers. The numbers that we have now came from Kemetic people. The reason why white people are so fascinated by Egypt is because it was one of the first places that created itself without white people, without European white people, right? So that's one. Two, the reason why so many Black people clamor to Egypt is because it was one of the first places where they were not concerned about race. It was a truly racist-free society. Why? Because there were so many cultures that were interwoven. They were just concerned about making the culture survive. They were not concerned about anything else. That's the reason why you see Nubians. That's the reason why you see us. Like, all of these cultures intermingle. So it was a cultural mecca, but it was a cultural mecca that was ruled by both lighter-skinned brown people and up to Black people. Right?
Right.
Now, here's where the connection comes in. So, one, we get the Hermetic sciences from Cometians. We get the mystics from Cometians. We get alchemy. That all of the stuff that are like the precursors to the science that we have now, they all began with those brown skinned and black skinned people. That's one. But people like to say, oh, well, that's not West Africa. Those aren't the Black people that are here. Stop playing with me. Have you ever heard of the Dogon tribe?
No, I don't think I have.
So the Dogon tribe is a tribe of African people that are all the way on the other side of Africa, right under Burkina Faso. Like, matter of fact, let me make sure I'm getting it right. Dogon tribe, current
hit it.
location. All right, because once again, Google is free, right? So the Dogon are an ethnic group indigenous to the Central Plateau region of Mali in West Africa, south of the Niger Bend, near the city of Bandiagara, right? So these people were so advanced in science and tracking the star Sirius B that the only way that white people could conceptualize that they were that intelligent all the way on the other side of this whole African expanse was that either A, they derived from the Egyptians, which means that, oh, we can still claim that these people came from our intellectual body. No. I'm finna fuck all that up right now. Because then, now, that eradicates another white supremacist lie, which is Black people were not intelligent enough to cross or create technology that could take them across those spaces. Because the way that it is that maps in the United States are drawn, we all know they're not drawn to scale. So that means that either these people had to travel from Egypt across that landmass all the way over to the other side of Africa, which is thousands of kilometers, or these people already had native intelligence. So let's break it down even further. Let's get to my people. Let's get to Nigerian people. Yoruba people.
Let's do it.
Igbo people, right? Yoruba people. Nigerian people have been counting to millions for thousands of years. And we do it by doing complex multiplication. Like the way that it is. So when you see African patterns and when you see those lines, when you see those things are not just patterns. Sometimes those are the ways to count.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes those are ways to keep count. Right? If you notice, a lot of games that they play in Africa are counting games.
Right.
They are games that require logic. They are games that require brain activity. The most primitive way to count, white people only think that you count in digits. If you look at the other side of your hand,
please say it.
You can very, and have you ever noticed that old Black people, they say one, like they say they never count the one. The reason being is because this in African, this is not one, this is zero. This is a placeholder. And in elementary school, they used to tell us, carry the one because it represents what? 10. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a half, right? Or 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So us as Black people have been counting on a quinary system, which is half of a decimal system for eons. That means that scientifically, the reason why we can get things half as quick as most people and we have to work twice as hard, is because white folks are still trying to figure out how the fuck we figure it out so fast. Because hip hop, they literally are trying to slow us down so that they can figure us out. Literally, the decimal system is the system that is most frequently used in the United States. Every other system of measurement is the metric system. Why? Because white people want to feel as if though they literally can measure anything with the instruments that they have brought over with them. So, we as black people have been doing math, science, we have been doing reading, we have been doing all these things for thousands of years. What has happened is that white people have literally taken us, thrown us into a controlled experiment, and have blamed us for fucking up consistently along the way, but not necessarily fucking up. They have blamed us for getting ahead. Literally, they are upset because we keep winning.
Yes.
They are upset that we keep winning. They are mad that we keep moving forward. They are upset. That's the reason why baby kids say, we don't die, we multiply. And that's real. That is real. White people use delusion and illusion to maintain white supremacy. We as black people do not have to eat it up because it is factually incorrect. It is based upon a lie that was constructed in education. Literally a lie.
Right.
Literally a lie. Based upon the want for white people to continue to justify in politics why they can continue, because once again, this is still in the 1800s. This is still during Jim Crow. This is all political. This is all academic.
Yeah.
Right? So it's all within, and this is the reason why I say quantum, right? All of these things anthropologically intertwine to the point where it distills on us so much so that we are bamboozled. We are in a space of literally illusion where we believe that simply because white people control the narrative, they are the writers of the story. No. We've written the story. They plagiarized it and they're rewriting it and they're giving it back to you. You just have to have enough self-evaluation, once again, and have enough self-care and have enough self-value to know that you mean something, and you do not stop until you find out what you mean and who you are.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed recording it for you. And yes, this is definitely going to be a 2-part episode. So this is the first part of it, and then next week we'll have the second part that comes out. But please do remember, we record these live every single week on my TikTok, and that's at IDEFOverthink, IDEFF Overthink. And it happens at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursdays. So I hope to see you guys there on Thursday, joining the conversation. Tell me what you want me to talk about. Tell me who you think would be a good fit for the show. A little bit of housekeeping. If you want to support the show monetarily, there are Venmo and Cashapp links down below, and the Patreon is coming soon. We're going to do the book club. There's just a few things I got to iron out. But until next week, I love you. Drink water. Go drink water right now.